Okay.
Bro.
And we're live.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Let's give it 10 seconds. So YouTube thing tells us we're live. You
No.
never know.
Okay.
Okay.
No, as soon as it says in the upper right corner that you're live, you're live.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
There's just a delay in
All right.
stream.
And we appeared on YouTube. That was the point. Okay. Again, hello. All right. We are gathered here tonight to talk about the natural history of dragons. By Marie Brennan. So we'll go in a circle. Apologies. We'll go in a circle and we'll tell people who we are and what we thought about the book. If we finish the book, that would be a good one. So I'll start. Hi, my name is Maya from Bookworm Dreams. I read fantasy and science fiction, and I read this book on audio. So apparently I missed all the illustrations that are apparently very awesome in the story. Yes, Christina, there are illustrations in the story. And what I thought about the book, that's my general thought. Like, okay, fine. All right, Christina, you next.
Okay, so I'm the second part of Bookworm Dreams. I read all kinds of things right now, so no specifics there. I read the book also on audio, so I apparently missed the illustrations as well. I was kind of underwhelmed by the book, I guess. I read it. I would have survived without it. So, there you go.
All right, Igor, you're next.
Hi, I'm Igor. I'm from Morina, Kutija, and I DNF'd this book around page 100.
Oh.
Okay.
I did see a couple of illustrations, though.
Were they nice?
Did not incentivize me to keep reading.
Okay. Leah?
Okay, hi, my name's Leah, and I'm 1/4 of Morina Kutija, and I was the one who actually picked the book for this this month's read along, and I was also underwhelmed by the book. I was not very amused, but the illustrations are nice, so I read it in ebook format.
Okay. And Antonia?
Okay. Hi, I'm Antonia, also from Morina Kutija, and I read this as an audiobook, which means I have had no idea that there were any kind of illustrations. I also fell asleep like 3 times reading the book, and I was so unamused that I didn't really want to get back to where I fall asleep. I would just go through with sort of a missing chapters. Yeah, I was bored most of my time. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, Leah, since you picked this book, can you tell us what this book is about? And why was it on your TBR? When you tell us what is it about, why was this on your TBR?
So actually, I saw so many positive reviews of this book, and I also saw Nevena from Nevena Reads, I think, on Instagram. Yeah, she read the book a while ago and also gave it a positive review. And since hers and mine taste in books are pretty much, they overlap in a lot of things, I was like, okay, sure. This is going straight to my TBR. And also, I love dragons. So, yeah, I was like, I have to read this. Everyone's talking very nicely about it. And everybody's telling in the reviews that it's cool. It's got dragons. It's very adventurous and everything. Then it's just, I don't know. It follows a scientist. It follows Isabel Trent, is it? Did I? Okay.
Yes.
I remember correctly. So yeah, about at the start of her career and how she started to actually observe dragons and how she started to become a dragon scientist. And we follow her on her first expedition and what she does there, far away from her home country. Yeah.
All right. So overall, I would say not a positive experience for people. No. Well, this book was on my TBR because I also love dragons. And I saw, as Leah, a bunch of people saying nice things about this book. And then I started coming across middling to negative reviews, people saying it was boring. And I sort of gave up on it until Leah picked it for the read along. So I was like, okay, I can read one. So, yeah. So, what were your like biggest? Do I want to say pet peeves about the book?
As far as my experience goes, I didn't like the voice of it. I don't know, the language, it was fine, and the style of it was fine. It was written nicely, but I was reading through it and the main character was just boring to me, and I didn't like there was nothing that engaged. I don't know, it was engaging to me in the story. Nothing really pulled me in as it should have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That was also my reading experience. Why was I so bored? Because I mean, the book is called A Natural History of Dragons, but I usually like this kind of the stories where researchers go and research shit and stuff, and also dragons. But this is not about the dragons or the research on the dragons, as we were promised.
Yes.
This is mostly about the main character, the Lady Trent, and on her first coming to terms, going on a first expedition, but also dealing with the misogyny of the era, because this is like historically inspired with early 20th century and British expeditions, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I mean, they're not even scientists. They're just a bunch of noble people who are bored and they like to go on expeditions and shit. And she's trying to get in this area because it's not usually reserved for women. And now she wants to get, but she likes dragons and wants to research. And now we're really following her and her life path. And for me, that was a kind of, I couldn't connect to any of the characters, not her and her story, not the whole expedition. It just felt like a rehashing of some old sci-fi books and tropes. So and dragons were very minimal and usually just ended up being shut down. So
Yes.
not a fun experience.
Yeah, the main character really wasn't really likable at all. She was, I mean, rude. I mean, she was like nobility, I guess, and she was very rude to the everyday man, let's call it that. And she was manipulative, and she got a lot of people into trouble when she was younger and when she was older. And the way she kind of manipulated her way into the expedition and such, it was. I was also okay. We're going to talk about spoilers now. There was a death of a character, and when it happened, I could not care less. I was like, okay, well, what happens next? Let's just finish this, because it was as Leah said, it wasn't as engaging, and as Antonia said, we were promised a natural history of dragons. So either talk about about the dragons and give us like the scientific stuff. There was like a short period where they were drawing the dragon, and we got a sort of saw that little sociopath thing where she what do you call that when you cut the animal open and stuff and start to look what's inside, and but that was basically yes. So but that was basically it. We didn't really get what the title promised, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, Igor, why did you DNF?
Because she kept talking. No, she kept referring to things she has done way later in her life as a way to set up things that are happening now. So she mentions that she has like 6 or 7 brothers and sisters, then goes, yeah, but the only one is important. Dear writer, why did you write 6 of them? Then, but okay. Then she says that he gave her it was a penknife, little knife. And then she says that, yeah, it's the knife that's going to save my life at some point in the future when I'm trapped in some swamp. And the thing is, those 2 sentences were more interesting to me than anything that happened in the next 3 chapters, where it's explained how she got the knife and she spent so much time. Okay, you've read the novel to the end. Does the stable boy or that servant girl ever reappear again, because so much time is spent in those first 100 pages on how she basically blackmails the maid
This,
to let her
yeah,
sit and read, and she blackmails the stable boy to what was it?
to join a hunt for one of the
Join the
for a
hunt.
dragon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's given so much screen time, and I was kind of convinced it's not gonna figure into anything. It was just filler for 100. It's if this was a show, I would have stopped watching half of your pilot episode, and
Yeah.
wouldn't care if anybody was trying to tell me, no, but it's a little bit of a slow burn. It kind of picks up later. It doesn't. It didn't feel to me like it was going to pick up. It felt like this is the tempo that the author has decided on, not just for this book, but for the entire series. And I just wasn't. It was at the point because I realized, okay, this is probably one of those stories where you have to read all 6 books to get the entirety of it, and I'm not going to read the second one, and there's no point in me forcing myself to read the first one to the end just for this. So yeah, it just
And you are correct. The stable boy and the maid do not appear after that
Yeah.
whole thing,
it
but it
figured.
sort of
Yeah.
kind of shows you how Lady Trent deals with servants, like later
Yes.
on. So yeah.
Yes, one of the things
Yeah.
I said to Maya while I was reading is I hate the main character. She is so annoying and she's so mean to people, and I just can't stand like her whole self-centered persona. Like it felt so like I'm so important and you will see why, and I just couldn't. It was so annoying. And as you gathered, Igor, literally the point they go on the expedition, you get like almost a completely new set of characters with a bit of old ones like her and her husband, and then you get a new servant and stuff like that. So like yeah, it's basically, it feels like this is the first chapter of her literally biography, not a history of dragons, but we're getting her biography, and like each book will be like
Yeah,
the second expedition and the third, and like
and I think that's the problem with the title, because the entire
yeah,
title of the book is a natural history of the natural history of dragons. Then there's the subtitle, a memoir by Lady Trent, and that thing,
yeah,
memoir by Lady Trent, should have been a warning sign in retrospect,
Yeah.
that is
because it's
true.
actually about her life and not about dragons. But
Yeah.
a memoir by Lady Trent, and then smaller, the natural history of dragons, doesn't really draw the reader in,
Yeah,
as
that's
we
true.
witnessed the 5
I
of
mean,
us.
she says on the beginning that it's a memoir, so I did knew what I was getting into, and I actually don't mind the style of the book. I really think that it was utilized really well, like the memoir part. I liked the way her old voice could comment on the behavior of her young self and to hint stuff that will come. That was, I actually enjoyed that part. But yeah, she, I don't know if you got caught this, but like for a book that focuses so much on the patriarchy and the fact that she has to fight in the men's world and so on and so on, she's so hell-bent on being misogynistic towards other women to the point that she literally has to invent women in her head to have like fight with. Like that friend from her childhood who liked to read romance, so like obviously she just isn't as intelligent as her main character because she likes romance, and each time she does something she thinks like, what would this other woman think, this my like friend who likes romance, and just invent what she would say so she could belittle her. Like
Yeah.
it just puts main character in the center position of someone who is extra special, and she gets to do cool shit because she's extra special, and who cares about whether or not other women in her society had depression like her or similar, because they're just painted like this whole other thing that is negative. and they all
Yeah.
just like gossips and romance novels, and
Yeah.
they're just like stupid, and she's like so great, and I just
But
couldn't care for her at all.
Oh, you're saying she's not like other girls.
She
Yeah.
precisely. But now that you mentioned this, she does the same thing to the servant girl on the expedition, Quagmira. What is it? There's literally a
I don't know.
point, something like that. Like there's a
Dagmira.
point where she said,
Yeah.
"Oh, but I just realized now, after months, she's actually as old as I am. Oh, look, and look at what she's doing. She's actually capable of stuff. Like, literally, this woman has been with you for months, and you're just now realizing, oh, look, she's actually a person. Like, literally, that's the impression I got.
And I hated that part with Dagmira, right?
Dagmara,
She's
yes.
Dagmira, yeah. Because when Lady Trent was given the opportunity to go to another place to study dragons, which is for her as a woman a big thing, she's like, her husband is telling her, you have to be ready to relinquish some of your comforts. Like you will not be staying in a bed, you will not have your servants with you, you will not, you cannot, like, nobody will go after you 24/7. And then the first thing she does when she gets to the place is she looks at the mirror and she's like, this girl doesn't know the basics of serving a lady, and I have to teach her. This is my life purpose. She will have to learn how to serve me. Like, hello, she, this woman that lived in this village decided to be with you, like, to serve you and to help you out, and she's doing this against her will. She's obviously not amused by it, and you're just like daily torturing this girl and making her life so much harder.
And she was
Yeah.
so unimpressed by the fact that it didn't have regular closets because she couldn't put her clothes anywhere, and the whole baiting thing where she was like, oh, I still feel dirty, and all of them are just doing it like this, and I just want a proper, like, shower. What? Come on. Like, you knew you were going to, like
I like
yeah, she
the
was
part. I like the part when the old ladies came
Yeah.
in during her spot and were like side-eyeing her, and she needed to leave. And I was like, so good. I was like, that's what you get. That's what you get for being so mean to all the local villagers.
Yeah.
And I think she's pretty much responsible for every well, not every bad thing that happened to them, but the whole leaving when okay, there was a whole plot with the smugglers in this village where they went to look for dragons and whatnot,
Oh,
and
right.
she's basically responsible for the smugglers, let's say, messing with them for the entirety of the trip after she stumbles upon their like cache of things to smuggle, I guess. And it was just so, she was so self-centered and unaware of her like actions. She was like, I'm being proper, I'm leaving a note, like leaving a note to the smugglers, I won't tell people, like we're cool, don't do stuff. Oh, she was very, very aggravating, I have to say.
I mean, I would accept that if it was if she hadn't like a character arc in this book, if her older self at any point tried to like comment on that part of the behavior, because it is it would have been accurate sort of behavior for a person in her position who had the upbringing she had of a noble lady who now has to go somewhere else. She never was she was never in that part of the world, and etc. and etc. And of course that she has some class issues with servants. So I would accept all of the bad as part of her character development, but I just didn't have I just don't think that what we got in this first book was in any way really for me ended up being satisfying in any way. I just ended up feeling completely disinterested in her character, completely disinterested in other people in her group. Like literally out of 4 characters, her husband, and 2 dudes I never bothered to learn their names or their parts. They were, for me, completely interchangeable through the expedition. I just knew that one of them sometimes hates her because he was not born noble like her, and that was a problem. And that was all. Like I just wanted dragons to eat all of them. Like, like that would be a happy ending for me. And I feel like I was thinking of the perfect ending would be like dragons eat the four of them, the four clowns, as I call them in my head. And Dagmira takes over the identity of Lady Trent, and we're now seeing this as in she has to role play Lady Trent and write as she believes Lady Trent would write. That would be perfect ending.
Right.
Yeah.
So, thoughts on the dragons? What little we saw of them? Do
You
have
know
any?
what?
What?
I was talking to my boyfriend about this, and I told him it looks like, it feels like this book reads like one of those old movies, CGI movies, where they had to lower the cost of CGI, and they had to, like, turn the camera to the shrub where the dragon appears, and then something like a tail, you see the tail and it escapes, and that's it, and that's the dragon, and they didn't have the money to include the dragons. That's how this whole book felt like.
The part that I still got to was when they take her to the menagerie, which is some noble guys, and it's literally that. It's like cages and bars, and you can see something, but not like fully. And it's more talking about what those dragons look like and act in their natural habitat than what it is. Like, although I did like those what are they called, ashlings, the wild ones, the little ones that she
Oh,
collected when she was a kid.
Spark,
Yes.
not sparks. Are
Sparks.
there was
Sparklings.
Sparklings.
Okay, not
Sparklings,
ashlings,
yes.
sparkling. Okay, that was actually a really interesting part of world building where they genuinely turn to ash once they die. That was fun, but that was pretty much the only interesting thing. Okay, her having that collection, it's something that Antonia and I were mentioning before, that it kind of serial killery a little bit,
Yeah.
collecting dead animals. But okay.
Not the collection as the thing she did to the dove. It was the dove or some other bird.
Yeah. She was trying to
Yeah.
figure out what a
Oh yeah, that
wishbone
too.
was.
Yeah. When she starts, cutting up
That's
animals.
like a first step in serial killer path.
Yes,
Like, this
animal.
is how you identify that a
Yeah.
child could become a serial killer. Like,
Animal torture. Yeah.
Yep.
so, yeah.
Do you think
And
the
sorry.
sorry?
Go on,
Do you
Maya,
think
sorry.
the book would have worked better if it was focusing more on the sort of scientific part of dragons? Like if we had more of a dragony textbook about dragons and their anatomy, do you think the book would have worked better for you?
I think the book would have worked. I have a feeling that for all of us, the book would have worked better if it started with her on an expedition
Yes.
and actually doing an expedition, but like a proper scientist, because this was just mostly this is just full of something cool is going to happen later. I promise. Here's references to it. Yeah. Okay. Nah.
And I had a problem with her just like I don't know, in some way highlighting how important to her is it to have a dead specimen. And I'm thinking, like, if you're a biologist or a scientist or anything, you would probably want to see these animals in their natural habitat and like look at how they behave. You're telling us that dragons are very rare. You have zero to no information about them. Wouldn't it be, to you, like a scientist, more interesting to follow along with them and to try to preserve them, since you love them so much, instead of cutting them open and looking at their anatomy? So like there was the part with the cave, and I thought the cave was a very interesting like point to make about the dragons and their their mourning rituals and everything. but why didn't you show us, like, by following a dragon and looking at how they're doing this in real life, like in the book, instead of coming at their cemetery and looking at bones? I mean, it would have been nicer to see her observing dragons in their natural state instead of, observing them and just dissecting them and glorifying the way they have to kill them off to know anything about them. Yeah.
I was so pissed off when we came to the cave and something interesting started to happen. Like, we started to learn things about the dragon's behavior. And then we had 6 chapters, and in that last 6 chapters, the story was completely derailed. Like, see that cool cave and the cool bones and the whole morning ritual of the dragons, forget about it all. Let's go now do some sort of a political intrigue / thriller thing tacked on the end to, like, just resolve
The rest of the book, yeah.
I was so pissed.
The rest of the book felt like a Scooby-Doo episode. I'm like, she discovers the dragon, the big bad guy is just a dude leaving clues and acting like one. I was like, who is she? Is she Welma? Is this novella fan fiction? What is going on?
Yeah. So basically, they were missing the Jurassic Park treatment. Like, we needed someone to be, well, let's collect I guess let's not collect the dragons, but, try to. I think I was more excited about the dragons than anything else. And I was hoping I had no idea what the book was. I mean, generally knew, but I was like hoping, well, like, is this going to be similar to Temeraire, the whole, His Majesty's Service, whatever it's called, by Naomi Novik? Are we going to have like talking dragons and then like people talking to the dragons, or are we going to have companions? What are they in Game of Thrones? Like, they're not pets, they're like wild horses, whatnot. But what I got was like so disappointing because I kind of hyped the dragons and I was like, okay, this is basically, they fly, they get killed, and they die, and people are using them and trying to killing them and using them to try to make stuff for war, like a new material to have better weapons and whatnot. It was so disappointing. And like so our like great naturalist, whatever, Lady Trent, did nothing to combat that treatment of the dragons. They're like, oh, let's just make dragons stop eating people and then let's leave and off to the next expedition. So that was like the most disappointing part for me. I was like, I wanted dragons and I got nothing.
I think the problem for me is the choice of a setting, and this whole. It's very this British colonialist kind of a story, where this group of rich noble people go on an expedition in an quote uncivilized lands where people are superstitious and just like poor peasants who are illiterate, and they do not know the noble purpose of these researchers who have this higher calling in their life to disrupt their lives by researching the fucking dragons that are eating their sheep and whatnot. But of course, these noble people are completely in the right about their shooting dragons and dissecting them and making other dragons angry so they can also eat people, because that's okay, because there's actually another big bad here who also shoots dragons, and it muddles the story, but it is very, very colonial in type of narrative that I remembered while I was reading this. I watched a video essay a few years back about the Lost World, and I don't know if you read it. It's the originally book by Arthur Conan Doyle that was adapted into a few movies, and it also
I think I read that one actually.
Yeah, and inspired a lot of other similar movies, and so it became a type of a narrative, Lost World narrative, that practically this is this book follows it to the T. And while I was reading it, I remembered that essay, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is that. But it doesn't in any way, I feel like it doesn't really think over these tropes that it used or the colonial messaging in it. It's just like, oh, cool setting for me to use, and I'm just like write this out without really giving anything new to the whole story. And I feel like, I mean, I know this is older book now, like it was published about 10 years ago. But again, 10 years ago, we already had like a better understanding of the older literature and the type of messaging it had. I feel like she could have done a better job of maybe, I don't know, retelling the story or something. But in the end, I really just felt like using old tropes that led nowhere except of sort of doing the nostalgia over the old times when like rich people could go to poor places and then just be rude to people
It
there.
was so much simpler to be rich. So fewer people judging you. Yeah. Look, I don't know if the author, by the end of the series, actually engages with everything that she seems to. I don't know if things like those tropes that you mentioned, and the fact that the protagonist is very privileged and is a misogynist. And I have no idea if the author, by the end, actually engages with that and kind of turns it on its head, and that the part of her character development is that she realizes, no, oh, this is wrong what we're doing. But if she does, then it should have been at least hinted in the first book, because when she acts horribly towards people, she could add, but later I'll realize that what I'm doing is wrong. If she could have put those aside, because, oh, he gave me the knife, and in 20 years' time, this knife is going to save my life, then I think she would have also put a sentence or two about, yes, I was horrible to her, which is something to the servant girl, but it's something that I'll realize much later on.
Yeah.
But I think Antonia is right that this is just pure nostalgia and no desire to make any comment on anything. It's just what I had from those first 100 pages, and I didn't want to judge just solely by that. But I see now by what you're saying is I was pretty much right, because my impression from those first 100 pages was of a writer who was very much nostalgic for the books she read as a child, I'm guessing, and does not have a critical view of what she read as a kid. Because I read The Lost World when I was a kid. I watched some of those movies and TV shows, but I definitely understand that it's not a good thing when rich people with no actual scientific background just go around being adventurers and killing and dissecting animals because it's just a cool thing to do. It's something that a gentleman does, because that's the thing that was in real life. Actually, a bunch of those researchers and explorers were just bored rich people, and sure, they made some discoveries, but they also kind of devastated an entire continent.
Yeah, what Antonia said about those comments from Lady Trent in the future, they sometimes reflect on how she feels and how she acted in the past, and that it was wrong, or that she later realized that maybe, I don't know, something changed. But there was only one instance when she acknowledges that the way she views the local villagers was wrong. She said, oh, back then I didn't understand that their rituals and their traditions and everything were important to them, and that I was in the wrong, like, for not following them. It was like a small paragraph, but it never gets mentioned again. And I was missing the same commentary for, let's say, the Dragmira or the priest that did the ritual of cleansing or anything. Like, she was trespassing and did something very wrong, and the priest was like, listen, you broke the rules of our religion or something, you have to be cleansed. And the whole time she was like, oh my god, they want to bathe me. Oh, okay, girl. Oh, I mean, yeah, you did something wrong, which is by their standards something that was very, I don't know, it was very bad. It was very bad. And instead of acknowledging it as the, future lady trend, okay, so everything gonna say this now, uh, I know it was necessary and I did something wrong. But instead of that, she just goes on and talks about how horrible it was and how they wanted to strip her in front of the whole, village, and how she needed to be cleansed and nobody was thinking about how she's a woman. And I don't know. It was, I was missing some commentary and I was missing some reflections that would make her, state that she changed. She knows and acknowledges that when what she did as a kid was not right. Yeah.
Yeah, she said herself she disrupted their lives, everyday lives, and they legitimately what they did was making things worse there. But she and her older self also does this. She just uses this like, yeah, but what we're doing, researching dragons, learning about the dragons, is for the betterment for the mankind. So that's okay, and that's so that shows me that the author didn't really want to engage into this more like colonialist parts of the story that ended up being here. It was just like this sort of a belief that they had right there to be there to research these dragons because like it will help everyone without asking these people, do they even want this? Because these are the people who have to deal with dragons in their everyday lives, who have problems with them, like shepherds and shit. And she's just like some person who came here for practically vacation and will go back home. So for me, it wasn't satisfying for me as a reader for this book, regardless of what will happen in the other books. Just wasn't enough self-reflection. And also this scene where they had to bathe also showed really that the villagers did listen to her and her objections. They gave her maximum privacy, like to bathe in that river, so only her husband and Admira will be there with her to bathe. And she also couldn't follow the simplest like rules of that part too, to strip completely. Like, how do you not understand that you also need to pull up the rings? I mean, I don't know. That I was just so tired, I guess.
And I mean, other than the huge loss of in her life, there wasn't an actual consequence of their actions. I mean, other than that, and she hasn't really learned anything from everything that's happened and hasn't changed at all. Maybe the change and whatnot happens later on because she's still not Lady Trent at the end of it. I realized, like, at the halfway of the book, wait, isn't her name supposed to be Lady Trent, not whatever her husband's name is right now?
Amherst.
Right?
Amherst.
Right. So I was like, oh, so I guess something will happen to the husband or whatever, and I didn't expect it to happen this way, which was also to me a bit like anticlimactic. It wasn't like, I guess I was missing a bit of excitement in the whole thing, or I was I guess a bit I wasn't paying enough attention because when the whole thing happened with the husband and I was like, okay, let's move on. There wasn't any other than her do you do Shiva, whatever you do. I don't know what the verb is for when she started mourning her husband. There wasn't really all that reflection on the loss. I mean, she kept trying. She did say, like, I did really love him and whatnot, but I guess we didn't see how much that affected her, the death of her husband by the end. I mean, other than, the fact that she, spoilers, ends up pregnant by the end. And just, it seems like it's like running in circles again. So she
Does it affect her more or less than the abortion that she had?
Miscarriage, you think?
Sorry, yeah, sorry.
Miscarriage.
Big difference. Thank you. Yeah, because she has
So
that miscarriage, and it is mentioned, and then they
It-
kind of
it's implied in the end that she did suffer again depression for over the loss of her husband, and maybe possibly having postpartum depression. We're not sure. It's sort of implied there at the end, but it's literally the last chapter and the last parts of the book, so it's not like she could really go into more in depth over that. But I was sort of laughing when her husband died, because it was that moment. She was pretty much the reason why he died. She brought down his death, and he died very lovingly in her arms, and she spent 10 minutes over his body and was like, okay, moving on.
You know what? Maybe she is a sociopath. Maybe she actually is a
I mean, I know
Okay.
that.
maybe she would have been a serial killer if she didn't go into whole dragons thing.
That's
I
what
mean-
I thought. Like maybe dragons are just a replacement for people. Like I'm not going to dissect people, but dragons. It reminded me, if you read The Collector, like it's not fantasy. It's like literally about a man who collects butterflies and then he starts collecting women.
Mhm.
It's like an old, maybe Antonia, you know it. It's like a classic. Anyways, like it's a thriller, but like that's what it reminded me of. Like, okay, so you're collecting stuff, and like he went on to collect people. So I'm like, Maya will come back. By the way,
Okay.
there's no
Okay.
electricity there, so she's
Ah.
trying to
Oh, no.
connect with the
I
phone.
thought that was it because her
Her
light
light
went out.
went. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that she had to close it for some reason, but this makes sense. Okay.
Oh, wait,
You're better
I think I-
detectives than me. I had no idea what was going on. I thought her internet went down. Hi.
There.
Lost power because we were shitting on the book too much, and
Yeah. Marie Brennan said that.
I wanted to ask, what did you guys think about the husband? Because he was a little bit flat as a character, but sometimes I really liked the way I was kind of warming up to him. But did he seem realistic to you as like a man in that era? Because I was
No.
like, I like him, but you're yeah, I don't know.
I mean, just purely statistically, there had to be people like him back then.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
But
that's fine.
No, but it's
yeah.
like incredible luck that she found exactly the only man who would have allowed her to do what she did.
I wouldn't call it luck. I would call it convenience. And
That's true. That's a good word. Yeah.
I would call him just like a plot device, to be honest. For the author to give the reason for main character to be even able to go on an expedition, because at this point, at least in the first book, she's still very much following the rules of society. And the only reason why she managed to went on an expedition is because her husband allowed her to. Like, okay, I will. And there's like this sentence, like in the middle of the book, when he's like arguing with the other dude, and he said, like, you can't talk about my wife like that. I'm the only one who can leash her if I want to, and you know that I don't want to. And it really does shows the part that the only reason why she's there in the first place is because he decided that she can go with them, which is also the reason why I simply don't like this kind of type of narratives where the main character is simply like playing by the rules, and it's really all about how good she is at manipulating these parts. Like she managed to beg her husband to take her with her. It's just like not a great fan of that.
That was I think that's the last chapter that I read. She didn't really have to convince him all that much, at least from
Yeah.
my perspective. And that's another thing, because at least my impression was that this Lady Trent, as in the overall the overall story of the series, is of someone who is going against the rules, who's a pioneer of sorts. That she's fighting against the system and all. But honestly, it's like, okay, so there's patriarchy, there's misogyny, fine, but it's like not really for her. I mean, she kind of has obstacles, but not really, because oh my god, she has to hide the books that she's stealing from her father's library, because if he finds out, he knows, and then he doesn't punish her. And it's really set up. Oh, she's breaking rules. She has to be sneaky, because that's the only way you can. To me, at least, it was supposed to be that commentary of women not being allowed to actually have an education. That she had to do it on the down low. But then it's like, yeah, but whatever. Okay, fine. Read the books. I don't care. And it's the same with thing. Oh, but yeah, but she needs to find a husband that will allow her to go on adventures, and she does, and she goes.
Yeah.
And
Maybe in the next books there
it's
will
one
be
of those-
more problems because she won't have a husband anymore to protect her. Or maybe she'll find
Uh,
one later on because she
honestly,
becomes a lady
I-
with different last name. But
I don't
Mhm.
know. I wouldn't be
It's the
surprised
main
if she finds another one who's like also very reasonable.
I wouldn't call what she's doing breaking the rules. I would say she's finding loopholes, because she's
Mhm.
pretty much still upholding the same sort of societal norms that everyone else is having. She's doing the same stuff. She's very much concerned with her behavior and propriety and all the other stuff. She's just learned how to move around these rules, to bend them, to give her an advantage. But I wouldn't say that she's breaking them in any way, or that she's doing some kind of big feminist fight against the society. Maybe later, maybe, I don't
Yeah,
know, in
maybe.
5
Yeah.
she becomes a part of the whatever suffragette movement will be in this world. But in this first book, no, she's pretty much just using what she got to get further in the way that she wants to, and that's pretty much all. But she does mentions as older self, but it was also blink it and you'll miss it, when she has this arguments with the dude who was not born as in nobility, but had to, I don't know, get a landed gentry or whatever, I'm not sure. Anyways, she thinks like she meant the old her mentions that when she was younger, at the 19, she believed that she had it worse than him because she was woman. And in her society, that meant that she can't go on higher education and so on and so on. But the old self does acknowledge that, in fact, he had it worse than her simply because of this class disparages. That she did have bigger opportunities than him simply because of her stages. But that was also like one sentence, and then let's move on. It's not important to this part of the story anymore, so we'll just go to the other stuff.
Yeah, I actually thought that most of her actions had little to no consequences, and that was one of the biggest problems with this book. I mean, every time she manages to somehow get out of the problems by uh, literally nothing. She manages, like with the cleansing ritual, for example. They say to her like, okay, so you trespassed on forbidden, like a forbidden location. We have to cleanse you. And I was like thinking, man, what are they gonna do with her? They just put her in the ice cold river. I mean, they could have killed her, or like, I don't know, burn her to death or something. And in any case, like when she gets kidnapped in it, or I don't know, puts others in danger, she never really suffers any consequences for it. She's just like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna do it again, or I don't know. Her husband's usually like, you shouldn't go alone or something like that, and then she does it again. Yeah.
So, are the biggest consequences that she suffers in the entire book when the hunt goes wrong? Is that like the worst thing that actually genuinely happens to her?
No, when
Oh,
the
it-
husband dies, I would
With
say.
the husband.
The husband dying at the end.
Husband.
No, I meant
Yeah.
to her like physically.
Physically.
Yeah. Yes, that's the only one.
Yeah. Yeah.
When she
That's
gets like swatted away by
Yeah.
the dragon and gets a
Yeah.
scar on her shoulder. Yes. Yeah. The
And-
other
and
consequence is the husband dying, and I guess, I mean,
the husband dying is more like it's not played as if it's her fault. It's played as if it's the fault of the ones who killed him. Yeah, but I feel like it downplays her role in this whole thing a lot. And she says she's dealing with depression after he dies, but we don't really see it on screen, and it downplays this whole emotion we should feel about him. Yeah. So it was kind of disappointing to just like, it's, everything will turn out fine, whichever way it goes.
Who knows what happens to Lord Trent? Well, I will not know because I will not continue this series.
Do you think this is like 6 books and it's like 6 husbands?
No.
The 6 husbands of Lady Trent. It's like no, because it's you know what? Maybe it's like in universe her memoirs are supposed to be read like a serial killer's confession, but in code. So there's like a 7th book that's gonna come out, and it's like, no, this is the real truth. Like we did the investigation.
I did it. This is how I do it.
There you go.
Oh gosh.
Oh no, all my husbands died, and each and every single one was really rich.
I mean,
Killed by a dragon, which we don't know.
Oh, that would be the great, if they had like a tell-all, like an expose book on a Lady Trent, the real dragon.
oh,
Oh my God, I wanted to ask you, what did you think about that line when she says to Jacob, like, I wish I was a dragon myself. I think I have a dragon inside of me. I was laughing so hard at that line. Because I'm sorry, like when I was a kid, I was obsessed with dragons, and like I get you, girl, but you're like you're too old for that. I'm sorry, but you're too old to say you have a husband. You told your husband, I have a. You're not gonna believe this. I have a dragon inside me.
I think it worked with how self-absorbed and self-centered she was. So, like her thinking she might have a dragon inside her, and maybe it will show in the next books in the series. Like I have a connection with the dragons because I have a dragon and whatnot. So, like I don't know, but it was an insane line. Yes.
no.
So, do you have any in your opinion, good dragon books to recommend to people?
Yeah, the first 5 books of the Temeraire series.
Yeah, I was going to say the Temeraire series by Naomi Novik. They're just awesome. When you have dragons who can talk, it's a fantasy of manners because dragons are learning how to function inside of English society and whatnot.
The
They
world
go-
building is much better, much
Yeah,
clearer
yeah.
in that book. Yeah.
And the Roots of Chaos are from Samantha Shannon are definitely those are a must read if you like dragons.
Yeah,
And it's much better written with better women. With better girl characters, amazing, spot on, chef's kiss.
I would agree. I'm also a big fan of Samantha Shannon's epic fantasy, though those are 2 different genres. This is more about
true.
sci-fi approach to the dragons, and Samantha Shannon is like epic fantasy, and it has a lot of mixed iconography of both Asian dragons and Western dragons, but I found it all very, very interesting and really well done. And it also, it engaged with some of this problems of the roles of a woman in society and queens and the whole matriarchal dynasties in much better way and with much better reflection. So better books to read, definitely. Oh, also, if I can do a bit of a jump scare, Vesna, are you going to jump in to say why you DNF'd the book and you're
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's knitting while we're talking.
Aw.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. Well, I had two big issues with the book. The first was that I can't stand stories with built-in misogyny in the way that she had to be very gentle and ask her husband for permission for everything, and she had to fight for herself from the inside. But from what I gathered from your discussion, you didn't perceive her as that sort of character. You perceived her as manipulative. So I had a different reading of it. I just can't stand narratives like that anymore, where women have to fight from the inside. I know it's funny because I loved the previous book, the one I'd chosen, which is similar, but it's very different. It feels different. This feels too realistic. The world building was too realistic for my taste. I just couldn't stand it. And also, I hated the way the book treated the dragons, and I DNF'd because of the systematic misogyny and the zoo menagerie thing. Yeah, I just can't do it anymore. Yeah. Can I go away now?
Get away.
Okay, do you have a better
Yes.
dragon book to recommend?
Yeah, Temporary, the first book.
Okay.
My precious baby. It's like a special treat if you like early 19th century, which is very rare. If it's not Regency, but early 19th century in historicals, especially in historical fantasy, it's very rare. I love it.
No, thank you. You can go now.
I know.
Okay. Christina, do you have any dragon books to recommend?
No. You know I don't read there. I don't read dragon books, but one thing I can tell you something I noticed from listening to you read dragon books. There are not a lot of books about dragons that actually have dragons in them. No, like seriously, I keep watching her reading books, and it's like, oh, look, I read another dragon book, and then by the end of it, she's always like, oh no, this was just a machine. Oh no, he actually turns into a dragon, but most of the book he's actually a human. And like books are marketed as
I think I know both of the authors.
There you go.
Another jump scare.
I'm back.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts. I really don't have anything to recommend. I'm sorry.
I remembered something. I would recommend Aliette de Bodard for all of those who are interested in Asian dragons, or more specifically Vietnamese wrongs. Her fantasy series that is like historical urban fantasy, Dominion of the Fallen.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
The first part has Dragon Kingdom showing up, but it becomes a major player in the second and the third book with the Dragon Prince. They are shifters, but they are still very well woven into the story as an actual dragon. So I really had a feeling that he was constantly a dragon, even if he was having like a human form. And there was these moments that you could like see his antlers, because Vietnamese dragons have antlers, so you could see his antlers going through, from his head while he was even human form, and so on and so on. And also she has like a sapphic retelling of the Beauty and the Beast in the Vanisher's Palace, where the beast is a dragon. So yeah, Aliette de Bodard, definitely recommendation.
I wanted to jump in with The Dragon Keeper from Robin Hobb. This is a more old school, I think, fantasy. I only read the first book, and it's more of a ecological and point like story about the dragons and how they're not the same. They're I would say crippled because of the ecological influence on them. And there's also a dragon naturalist, and I was thinking this whole book, oh my god, I remember reading Dragon Keeper in high school, and I remember Alice as a character, and I liked her way more than Lady Trent. So I mean, I haven't read the whole series, so I can't say for the rest, but the first book was my favorite for a long time. So yeah, it has dragons not in the same type that you recommended, but I like the book. So yeah.
I didn't mind the first Anne McCaffrey book either. It was like fine. It's sci-fi dragons. It's totally different to anything else, but it was fine. It's just
What's the name
extremely
of the book?
old. Dragon Riders of Bern.
Oh, that.
Oh, I read the first book of that, and it's I know I had a problem with it because I read it as a fantasy, and it's actually like sci-fi. Yeah. But when you realize that, I think it reads a little bit easier.
Yeah. But the best piece of dragon media I can think of is Dragonheart, which is not a book.
Oh my god, I love Dragonheart. Oh my god, that's like such a guilty pleasure. Oh, I love Dragonheart. Yeah.
Let me check what Dragonheart is actually.
It's a film from the 90s. Sean Connery as the voice of the dragon.
Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
It's so good.
Yeah. A bit depressing.
But
isn't he like a last dragon?
Yes, he is.
So, yeah.
You feel okay in the end.
He is, but he is so awesome that by the end, he becomes a star in the Draco constellation, which only like happens to only a couple of dragons before him.
Yeah, depressing. Sorry.
I didn't mind.
Yes.
How to Train a Dragon is fun. I read I think first two books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The audiobook is read by David Tennant, so that always helps.
Oh.
Cool. Well, okay. As we are winding down, does anybody have anything they want to promote or say?
No, I just wanted to ask something. So, who do you think is actually worse at her job, Lady Trent or Emily Wilde?
So Emily Wilde went to school for her stuff, so I think.
Oh, she has no.
I mean,
I liked her better. I liked Emily better.
Me too.
Whatever you say. Yeah.
I agree with you, Leah. Me too.
Yeah.
I liked Emily much more.
Say what you want about Lady Trent and the way it's written, okay? But Emily, I could probably be friends with her even if she didn't want to. I do not want this woman, Lady Trent, near me.
yeah.
No, thank you.
I mean, Emily's a bit useless, but I feel like she's not so cold-hearted, even when she is cold-hearted as the Lady Trent. I feel like Lady
She
Trent
would not. She would not be so fast to cut up her fairies.
No,
She would not.
No, that's true.
And her husband is much more likable.
Like, I feel like Lady Trent would like hurl a slur to my face, like Emily would not. But also Emily would like I don't know.
Emily has been great. She knows us.
She probably wouldn't talk to us.
Okay, so I'm guessing that we're coming to the end of this rant video because this was another
Yes.
All right. So if you don't have anything to promote, please check out our channels, Book with Dreams and Morina Kutija. We will leave the link to Morina Kutija's everything, social media and website and the podcast and everything. So please do check them out.
Yeah.
And
if you have a story with the dragons in them and you're watching this while our current open call is still active, then do send us this story with dragons or anything else that is fantasy, sci-fi, or horror. More details at morinakutija.com, where we have the currently are open for submissions for short stories and short comics. And that's that, I guess.
Well, that's it. Christina will click the button in 5 seconds while we wave to the people.
Yeah, okay. Bye.
Bye.